Hey, what is up YouTube and Twitch? Because everyone is here. We are doing this live. We are doing the card review for the second class we're talking about here, which is Priest. Let's just start talking about these. Priest is not one of the Excavate classes, so we're just going to go talk about all these cards in order. So the first one we have here is Holy Spring Water. 2-mana Holy spell. Restore 8 health to a damaged character. Save any excess in a 1-cost bottle. So that's going to look like this, where you're going to do this. So a couple things that's really good about this. The whole point of this is that it still will work with Overheal, right? It's got to be the whole point. You're going to, like, for example, you can heal something for 3, and then you get a 5-cost bottle, and then that's going to be a flash heal in that case, effectively. So that's really the whole point you would be doing that. Yeah, would you actually want to draft this, though? I don't know. Like, probably not, right? It's a lot of healing in one card. And honestly, that's been a problem with Priest, is that they just don't actually heal very well, and that covers this up. It activates all the synergies and stuff. This is so as a result, like, assuming you have enough value that you're not really worried about it, and you have like Overheal and stuff, you might actually want to take this. You can trigger, like, you can't trigger Overheal twice with this because it has to be damaged, so you can't actually just immediately do it again. So that kind of limits it weird. But this might be a thing you're okay with drafting one of, but realistically, you usually don't want things like this. You'd really want to have synergy, and you want to have just not be worried about stuff. So it seems, you know, probably relatively weak, but it'll have its moments. You don't think it needs to be damaged? It specifically says it needs to be damaged. So if it does, if it doesn't, then that text is horrible, because it specifically says it has to be damaged. Anyway, next one is Benevolent Banker. 3-mana 2/4, Battle Cry. Discover a spell from your deck. Quick draw. Enemy deck instead. Well, that's going to be rather annoying. Fortunately, I guess it's a epic. Unfortunately for Priest players, it's an epic because, you know, classes like Death Knight get all their really good cards as commons, and they wouldn't be understat. But Priest has them as epics, so you won't see them as much. Discovering a spell from your deck is really good. Discovering a spell from your enemy deck is also really good, because that also gives you information, and you can steal their Pack the House or something, whatever. And yeah, it's not a copy, so it actually steals the card, so that's pretty relevant as well. You get information on what else you don't steal. And I mean, it's really good because you get to see 3 spells from their deck potentially, and you pick the best out of the 3, right? So you also make their deck worse, potentially pretty substantially worse. But it's a very powerful effect. It's on a 3-mana 2/4, so you are paying out a little bit for it. By modern standards, like, that's actually paying a pretty significant price. Quick draw means that basically you get this if this, because you can't really discover this or add this to your hand any other way. That means if you drew this turn, the turn that you play it, then you get to steal from the enemy. So you have to have drawn it that turn, which also makes it a little tricky to do, because, like, if you just draw this on turn 5, you might not want to play this that particular turn, right? So it's a little tricky to actually get to do the steal with this potentially. It's very unlikely you can just play it on turn 3 and actually do that. So overall, it's going to be a good card. If you can actually get the quick draw, like, on curve just by chance, you can, and then it's really, really good, but that's actually not going to be the case most of the time. But in any case, it's a really strong card, regardless. Next up, we have Injured Holler. This is a 3-mana 3/7, which is going to be a super high roll for some of the random 3-drops, like this one in neutral. Battlecry, deal 4 damage to this minion. Overheal, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So this would be one of the big ways, you know, you can go Injured Holler and then play Holy Spring Water on this. Based off what the Holy Spring Water says, it looks like you can't trigger it twice immediately, but I mean, you could play the Spring Water and then heal this with your hero power. If you randomly generate it in Shaman, you could Healing Totem on the board. Your opponent's going to be devastated. That was the one thing that jumped out of my mind, but the thing is that this card sucks if you don't really have, like, heal synergy. Like, you actually need to have stuff like Holy Spring Water or something else, or else this card's garbage. It's just not good by itself. So that's kind of a problem, because realistically, you're not going to get to, like, play this and then, like, heal it with your hero power. Like, it doesn't work. So it's a combo card. It's not like this is something that's going to, like, super win the game necessarily. I mean, once it's here, once you have it at full health, and you're a priest, it's a problem for your opponent, because you're getting free consecrations. And if you have multiple heals, you can consecrate multiple times, right? So that's potentially really, really good. And Yo Mifundi is here on the raid with the raid on Twitch. Welcome everyone. This one is just like a combo card that you essentially aren't going to have the tools in Priest necessarily. It's something you can go for, but it's not going to be super consistent probably. Next up we have Invasive Shade Leaf. 4-mana Shadow Spell. Deal 8 damage to an enemy minion. Save any excess in a 1-cost bottle. So this is the Bald Shade Leaf. It's a 1-mana spell which will deal the excess damage to an enemy minion. So for example, let's just say you use this as a... Be pretty reasonable to say you just kill a Yeti with this, you deal 5 damage with it, then you get a 1-mana deal 3. That's pretty cool. You're getting like 2 removals for the price of 1, right? This seems like reasonably efficient. It's always going to be good. It's probably going to be very good. Even if you, like, say you deal 7 damage, you get like a 1-mana ping. That's still really good, right? It's kind of like, yeah, it's a different flavor of Arcane Overflow. Instead of getting a minion on board, you get just a second initiative. And because you're Priest and you don't have like a ping hero power or anything, it should be pretty good. So yeah, it's a very efficient card. It's definitely good. Something you'll be happy to have. But the question was asked, how does it work with Divine Shield? Cards like this don't know what a Divine Shield is. Just pretend like the Divine Shield isn't there. It's going to pop the Divine Shield, but it's not going to do anything else. So like, you're never going to want to use this on a Divine Shield, basically. Next up, we have Pip the Potent. 4-mana 3/5 legendary minion. Battle Cry. Copy each 1-cost card in your hand. There aren't even any 1-cost cards in Priest in this set, so that's kind of weird. Priest does tend to have some pretty good 1-cost cards. Oh, you can copy the bottles. That is true. Yeah. Okay, so you can make like really big bottles on purpose and then copy. I mean, still, that's so weird though. That's just, you have to be using them inefficiently to even do that. That still doesn't make any sense. But there are other like good Priest cards, like, you know, Draconic Studies, that kind of stuff, right? Could come back, Light It Burns. I mean, there's a lot, historically have been a lot of good 1-mana Priest cards. If you're copying anything good, I mean, this is going to be a decent card for sure. Because they are cards you would like to copy a lot, but it's a pretty good legendary. It's not like a Titan or something, but it's good. Next up, we have Posse Possession. 4-mana Shadow Spell. Summon a 4/4 copy of a random minion in your opponent's hand. So if you're skilled, and your opponent is also skilled enough to draft a Titan, this is just a 4-mana Titan, which is really, really good, right? Of course, it's just completely random. I mean, it's probably never going to be that bad, right? Because, I mean, you might get, like, a good Death Rattle or something. It's really not that likely this is going to really hurt you. This probably actually is pretty good. It does give you information no matter what, and at worst you're playing a 4-mana 4/4 that doesn't really do anything, but it's not that unlikely that you get something positive. And if you get anything positive, it's probably worth it. So this is actually probably a pretty decent card on average. You'd probably take it like over a Yeti, for example, right? I don't know if you would take it over, like, you probably wouldn't take it over a premium card, but you'd probably be pretty happy to take it. It's an epic that you won't see very much. Next up, we have Tram Heist. 4-mana common spell. Get a copy of each card your opponent played last turn. Another way to steal Titans. However, it's very expensive. So this is a, as opposed to, you know, Rogue has a secret that does this. This is one that you can actually, unlike that one, which you had to prep, this one, you can use it whenever you want, whenever they steal cards. So ideally, you would steal a lot of, like, cheap cards. It would be, you know, whenever they do a turn with a lot of spells or whatever. That's when you would want to use this. Like, imagine a shaman plays that spell that generates more spells, you know, or any class that can do that. Like, a lot of classes can do that. You can do something like that. If Death Knight does that 4 assassinate undead combo, you can just steal that, for example. Like, there's a lot of things you could do that, and on 10 mana you'd be able to just play it immediately too. There's things that would be pretty useful for that. I mean, having said that, like, it's still a little hard to play 4 mana do nothing. You'd have to be a pretty scumbaggy Priest where you have just a lot of other board clears to keep you alive to really expect to get away with playing this. But in that kind of a deck, this could be something that would be nice to have. You know, Priest has a problem staying alive already, and playing 4 mana do nothing isn't going to help. But yeah, a high roll Priest, a high roll scumbag Priest would be, you know, would love this. Realistically, it's probably something you'd be more happy to just discover than actually draft, I think. But it could work, especially in a high roll deck. Next up, we have Swarm of Lightbugs. 5 mana, spell, which reads summon 10 light bugs, 1/1 light bugs with lifesteal. Wait, summon 10? How does that work? There's only 7 board slots in this game. Well, that's because save any excess in a 1-slot bottle, so that means automatically you have at least 3 excess here, right? So essentially, I mean, this is like extremely annoying. It's kind of just like a super cheesy card, right? It's so much better. You know, like Paladin has the card that's just like 5 mana summon 6 dudes. These are all better than dudes because they all have lifesteal, right? Just really really strong. Essentially, no matter what, yeah, it's like a 6 mana 10/10. I mean, even if your opponent has like a board clear for the first wave, you're gonna get a second wave, which is gonna be really good too. Yeah, there are so many relatively cheap board wipes that you probably assume the first wave is going to get board wiped, and then you're going to have to worry about the second one. Sometimes it just won't, and if it doesn't get wiped, then you're getting so much healing and stuff that this is just going to be really, really efficient. So overall, I mean, I think it's a pretty good card. If you're forcing out like a Consecration, and you're kind of forcing them to have it, I think it's going to be pretty good most of the time, because if those bugs stick, you're winning. Yeah, if your opponent has Whirling Combatant, you're a little bit sad. Because then they get 2 whirlwinds in one potentially. You have to deal with that before you can play the second half. Ideally, you would be on board so that you can play like you can do it like 5 and 5, so that they have to deal with both of them as equally powerful threats. I think it's just good enough though, because like it is like very, very good if it just doesn't get AoE'd. It's so easy to AoE in the modern meta is the problem. I kind of don't like playing with cards like this because it's so risky just off of like it's whether or not they get AoE'd. Yeah. Next up we have Thirsty Drifter. 6 mana 4/6 taunt, costs 1 less for each 1-cost card you've played this game. Yeah, so obviously this is going to work with the bottles as well. If you have Pip the Potent, this is going to cost 0. Automatically, basically. You're gonna have like a couple of those bottle cards that's gonna activate this. You're also just gonna have like 1 mana cards from other sets most likely. You only really need to discount this twice for it to be good, right? Like a 4 mana 4/6 taunt is good. You really should be able to get that. Maybe not on curve always, but you should be able to get that pretty quick, like almost always. At least I haven't drafted that many priests. It used to be you would draft priest and you would always have like a bunch of 1 mana cards. Yeah, it might not be true anymore, but of course you're gonna have the bottles and stuff, so it should be pretty darn consistent. I think this is just gonna be good, but yeah, the game is just gonna be how quick you can actually get this down, because you're not always gonna be able to like play it on turn 4, for example. It might be a little bit slower than that. It might just be a little bit more delayed. Like worst case scenario, it's pretty much always going to at least be a 5 mana 4/6 taunt, which is still okay. Next up, we have the last card here, which is Elise Badlands Savior. 8 mana 5/5 Battle Cry. If your deck has no duplicates, summon 4/4 copies of 4 random minions in your deck. So this is a Highlander legendary, which is a lot of stats. It's a lot of total stats, but it's also, I mean, you can't AoE this with 1 card, but you can with 2, basically. It requires you to be a Highlander deck. It's completely useless if you're not a Highlander deck. There are certain things you can have that would be synergies with this. If you have any overheal cards, you have any death rattles, obviously, that makes them better as well. But, I mean, part of the issue is that I think Priest is a really hard class to actually go Highlander with, too, because you're really dependent on, like, the premium cards you do have. You know, you don't want to have to give up multiple copies in Priest. You imagine like saying like, oh, I have to skip this 2nd and 3rd harmonic pop because I want to keep this active, you know, that kind of thing. That makes this like a little bit difficult for me to justify, because also it's 8 mana anyway, and it might just get like double fire sailed or something. So I don't love it anyway. Obviously, it could be very powerful, could win games if you pull it off. But I mean, the one nice thing is that you don't actually need to be, by the time turn 8 rolls around, you could have had duplicates and just drawn them anyway. So, but that's a problem also, as Sneaky Troll brought up. You might have drawn, at that point, you might have also not have enough minions in your deck to even summon. So that would be the other problem. I mean, overall, like, obviously the upside is there, but assuming the Highlander condition isn't that hard, it's probably an above average legendary, but like, that's like a big if, right? It's a big assumption overall, so I don't I don't love it, but it's, you know, it's a strong enough card if it goes off. It's just, it's a little bit of work. Anyway, with that, let me know what you think in the comments section below the YouTube video. Appreciate everyone for hanging out. We see you guys in the next one as we talk about what's next. We're talking about Shaman. All right. Bye-bye.